Welcome. This is Mr. Perry. Mr. S has you on a new track. It's called Post-War America, the Cold War, Civil Rights Movement, and Beyond. And, of course, we're talking about World War II and what happens after that. So read along. Right after the war, Western Europe and parts of Asia were in ruins right after the war, and poverty made it easy for the USSR to spread communism. USSR is the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, whose center is in Russia. And this communism started in Eastern Europe and spread throughout Asia. Now, the United States, of course, is a capitalist country and wanted to keep Europe capitalist. In 1948, the Marshall Plan, which is also called the European Recovery Program, gave $15 billion to European nations to rebuild cities and industry. The USA and USSR started having tension. Each wanted to be the most powerful country in the world. The USSR was angry at the US for not including them in the international community. The USA created NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, in 1949, which was made up of the USA, Canada, and many European countries to protect against the USSR. The USSR created the Warsaw Pact in 1955, and that was created as a response to NATO to protect the interests of the USSR. Let's take a look at the map at that time. If you notice, the countries in dark blue here were NATO countries. Most of Western Europe, as you can see, and these countries here were a part of the Warsaw Pact. And you can see right in the middle there of all of that is Germany, because West Germany was under sort of the heading of NATO, while East Germany was a part of the USSR, a part of the Iron Curtain, as it was called. The Cold War, 1947 to 1991. It officially lasted from 1947 to 1991, as I just said. When the USSR fell apart, that is, in 1991, it's also called the Cold War because neither side declared war on the other. Both sides supported countries going to war with each other or having a civil war due to communist uprisings. They were called proxy wars, and an example of a couple of proxy wars were the Vietnam War and the Korean War. Both sides competed against each other through the arms race and the space race for international attention. Both sides were creating thousands of nuclear weapons, and both sides were fighting for dominance in space. And you can see the countries, certainly in blue, were part of NATO. And we had other allies in the lighter blue, or nations which were receiving aid from the U.S. And over here, of course, we had the Warsaw Pact. And that was the pact which kept us ill at ease. Korea and Vietnam, the proxy wars. Even though the USSR and USA never declared war, they both supported countries that were in a civil conflict. The Korean War, which was from June of 1950 to July of 1953, Korea was in civil conflict. The communists, led by Kim Sung, lived in the north and were supported by Russia. South Korea was supported by the U.S. Our president at that time was President Dwight D. Eisenhower. It was started when the communists crossed the 38th parallel, and we'll show you that later, that parallel line, and tried to claim all of Korea. U.S. sent support to the South to defend against the attacks. In July of 1953, after 5 million lives were lost, both sides agreed to stop fighting and split the country in two at the 38th parallel. There's the North Korean leader, Kim Sung, and there is the 38th parallel. On that side, North Korea. On that side, South Korea. So that's the beginning of your notes. You have a lot of material to cover, but you also got a lot of good information that Mr. S gave you. So give it a whirl. Let's get it done. Hit it and quit it.